Hello and welcome to another episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is Deck Breakdown. Today's episode is all about Toxrill the Corrosive, a 7-drop, 7/7, that says at the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token, and you can play blue and black and sacrifice a slug to draw a card, which makes Toxrill's commander colors blue and black, not just mono black, which is a nice little addition for some powerful cards. All right, but this is a tricky deck. It's got a really cool win con combo in there, and then I also have another infinite combo in here to try and make it win better, because there's a lot of cards. I actually spent a little bit of money on some of the decent ones and stuff in here. It's still not optimized. I need to work on the land base and everything else, but 7-drop means it's not coming out until like turn 7, and if you're lucky with the right kind of ramp in artifacts, you might get him out on turn 4, 5, 6. I think the earliest you can get him out is on turn 3, which is impressive, of course, but the likelihood of you getting the exact right, combination of cards to get him out on turn 3 is pretty unlikely. And I will admit to you, I have had it happen once, and it immediately got destroyed before it was even my end step. So just goes to show you, even getting it out that early doesn't help make it win the game. But the point is to get him out and then start putting -1/-1, slime counters, which give them -1/-1, to blow up your opponent's board states, giving you slugs when they die, and then swinging in for commander damage, or hopefully maybe overrunning with a bunch of slugs. So let's dive into the breakdown of it and see how it goes about doing that. First off, we've got 35 lands. That might need to go up to maybe 36, I don't know. Two of the most important, of course, are Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, which makes each land a swamp in addition to its other types, and Cabal Coffers, which helps you tap 2 and tap Cabal Coffers to add a black for each swamp you control. Especially if these two are out, it makes all your mana swamps, so it makes it a lot easier to cast or make a bunch of black mana, and then also tap your lands as you need them, so hopefully some blue lands in there as well, some islands or something. Obviously, Urborg is part of one of the ultimate combos in this, and I will go over that in a little bit. But the rest of it is just, basics and hopeful, lands that count for 2. I should have a couple of the ones that are good where it's like, oh, this comes in untapped if you have 2 or more opponents, or if you have 2 or more other lands. But still, I think there needs to be a few of the better lands, like some of the ones that the pain lands, as they call them, where it comes in tapped unless you pay 2 life, or it comes in and taps for a colorless, but it can tap for black or blue, but it dings you for 1 when you do it. That kind of stuff to help speed the deck up. Next, we'll go to instants, which are up here. We have 17 instants. Most of these are, this is one of the few decks where I tried to put counter spells in, because, again, with Toxrill, not only do you have to wait until you have 7 mana, you actually need to wait until you have 9 mana or more, so that you can have at least one counter spell in your hand for when they try to blow it up on turn 3, or whenever. I still don't, use it very well, but there's 4 of them at least. And then, of course, big powerful spell like Cyclonic Rift, because, again, you're going to be open for a long time, because I don't have very many creatures in here. So I'm going to be getting dinged, and people, especially if someone's running a token deck, they're going to come at you straight away, because they don't want Toxrill hitting the field. So you might hit mid-game or something and be at, teens of your life, or maybe even single digits. You need the Cyclonic Rift to buy you the time to get Toxrill out and then take control of the board. Then some instants that make creatures power and toughness down to 1/1 or lower. That way, Toxrill will immediately kill them, even if it's I've got a Kozilek out or something. Well, now it's temporarily a 1/1, and oh look, I go to my end step and Toxrill kills it. Dark Ritual, which helps as mana ramp, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, some answers with destruction spells, things like that. We only have 3 enchantments. Again, they're enchant creatures that make them 1/1s to hopefully, allow Toxrill to kill something really big. And then Mystic Remora is basically just a card draw in there, but of course you have to pay every upkeep, so it's not going to last very long. Now let's move on to the creatures, where we have 15. Top 3 are all duplication spells. Sakashima, Thousand Faces, the Imposter, and Spark Double all copy target creature, but they eliminate the legendary rule. So if you can get Toxrill out and then make it around to your next turn, you definitely have 4 mana. You cast one of these, now there's 2 Toxrills out. They're each going to see those slime counters, which is going to start ramping up the amount of -1/-1s on bigger creatures, killing them faster. We've got Thopter Assembly, which you may have seen from one of my other decks. This is also part of a combo with one of the artifacts. We'll bring that back a little bit later. The rest of the creatures are ones that just try and, draw cards or ding people. This is going to double counters when it comes in Deep Flow Skate, so that hopefully, it'll, double the counters, the slime counters on people and kill bigger creatures. Massacre Worm, when it enters, gives other opponents' creatures -2/-2 until end of turn. Again, ideally hoping that it helps Toxrill to kill something. But basically just things like that. Blood Pet is a good one to try and sacrifice to get an extra mana in a pinch when you need it. And then Thrumming Bird, again, Proliferate, which will hopefully help to up the slime counters, thereby killing bigger creatures faster before someone can, drop a counter spell or a destruction spell at that point if he's already on the field. Next up, we've got the all-important sorceries, right? 15 of these. And this, again, like I said, I went and got the tutors. So this is one of the few decks I have, I think one of only 1 or 2, that actually has tutors in it. Because you want, with something like this, it's so late game to get the commander out. You need to go immediately and get those pieces to do the combo off of Toxrill, or maybe even if something's gotten blown up, or if like I played Urborg and someone actually had land destruction and got rid of it, now you got to go and get, Thopter Assembly and the other piece of that combo. Now, then we got another duplication spell, so you can make an extra Toxrill, and then either card draw or destruction, answers. Here's one where it's like, if you get really late game, I have one with Toxrill one time using Torment of Hellfire right at the end, because I just had so much mana, even though I couldn't get him out, because it was like, I think he blew up at least twice, and he was too expensive, but I had enough that I could dump it into Torment of Hailfire, and I killed the last couple of people. And then just Proliferate and or card draw, minusing, so it's all the same general idea. Card draw, definitely in this, because you need to get those. If you're not getting the pieces, you definitely need to get the artifacts to speed things up and get Toxrill out faster. Speaking of which, artifacts, there's 14. Obviously, the bulk of them are going to be your mana rocks that are going to try and just get things in. Of course, I know people don't necessarily like the diamonds. I do, but obviously there are better things to try and get, but super expensive. So if I tried to optimize this, this would go away for one of the Moxes or something. It's a 0 drop or some crap. You know how that is. But otherwise, it's all the things that can try and ramp him out faster. And then we've got the 2 pieces that are part of combos. So Time Sieve goes with Thopter Assembly. It's an artifact that sits on the battlefield, and you tap it to sacrifice 5 artifacts and take an extra turn. Well, Thopter Assembly says at the start of your upkeep, if you have no Thopters, you bounce Thopter Assembly back to your hand and make 5 Thopters, 5 1/1 Thopters. Well, as long as you have the mana available to recast Thopter Assembly that turn, you can start an infinite loop of taking extra turns, which is one of those things, like if you heard me talk before, I do hate I have infinite mana, I have infinite turns, I can just get an answer. So this is weaker, and I'm not crazy about it, but at least with something like this in this deck, the idea is that it's not about finding an answer in my deck. At that point, it's about just getting Toxrill out, going around the table enough times to destroy your creatures, and then 1, 2, 3 hits with Toxrill commander damage, you're dead. 1, 2, 3, next person. So it is still a lot of turns to get there, but it's still about the actual damage. It's not about, I can just magically find an answer. I know what the answer is. It's commander damage to your face. The infinite loop just gives me the time to get there. And the other major combo that the deck is built around is Corvus Bell and Urborg. Urborg, as you remember, says all lands are now swamps. So everybody's lands on the field. Opponents, yours. They're all lands. Corvus Bell says all swamps become 1/1 black creatures. They're still count as lands, and they can be tapped for mana. That includes yours. So now every swamp, i.e. every land on the field, is now a 1/1 creature. Well, you go to your end step, they get -1/-1. Everybody's lands except for yours blow up. Now no one has the mana to cast anything. And once Toxrill clears the board in terms of any creature defenses, the creature, Toxrill can get through, and then theoretically, if you're getting a slug for every single land that just blew up, depending on the turn, you could have a good 10, 15, 20 or more 1/1 slugs in the field. So you could send Toxrill at one opponent, all the slugs at somebody else, and while they're trying to get the mana ready to recast something, anything, you're knocking players out of the game. And unless they have mana rocks and can play, just what they need to do, which is not impossible because they could still do if they have something that taps for, a color like Arcane Signet, and they drop a land, an island, they can still drop, a normal cost Cyclonic Rift and just Cyclonic Rift, Toxrill or something, to buy time, or Corvus Bell. I mean, it's not going to slow you down too much because theoretically at that time you will have enough mana to recast, but it gives the next player time to play and keep a land, and hopefully, depending on where it is in the rotation, you might have some opponents to deal with. But there you have it. That is my Toxrill deck. 2 main win cons in it. 3 if you count commander damage with an open board state, ideally, with Toxrill getting rid of all the opponent's creatures. So what do you think? What do you think should be in this deck? How would you make it better? Like I said, I don't have very many creatures, so the defenses are pretty low. You're taking a lot of hits early on. You risk dying before you can even get Toxrill out. And, you got to worry about him getting blown up, exiled, bounced immediately before you can even get to your end step. So there's a lot to worry about, a lot to juggle. If he goes off, he's pretty fun, but it can be rare. But still, I mean, I don't hate the deck yet, even though it's frustrating, because I understand why I have to be attacked first, but it doesn't make it any better. But what do you think? What would you play, or how would you do it differently? I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you stick around and maybe check out some of my other stuff. I'd really appreciate a subscribe if you could, and I will see you next time.